often when I stand to things like she's not free. I
last night. She gets as good as tea now, isn't she? And then we'll meet up to try and there again and pick that clock.
Aged 27 years, died the 5th of May 1981 after 66 days on hunger strike. Francis Hughes, South Derry, aged 25 years, died 12th of May 1981 after 59 days on hunger strike. Ray McCreesh, South Armagh, aged 24 years, died 21st of May 1981 after 61 days on hunger strike. Patsy O'Hara, Derry City, aged 24 years, died 21st of May 1981 after 61 days on hunger strike. Joe MacDonald, Belfast, aged 30 years, died the 8th of July 1981 after 61 days on hunger strike. Martin Herson, East Tyrone, aged 24 years, died the 13th of July 1981 after 46 days on hunger strike. Kevin Lynch, North Derry, aged 25 years, died the 1st of August 1981 after 71 days on hunger strike. Kieran Doherty, Belfast, aged 25 years, died the 2nd of August 1981 after 73 days on hunger strike. Thomas McElwee, South Derry, aged 23 years, died the 8th of August 1981 after 62 days on hunger strike. Mickey Devine, Derry City, aged 27 years, died 20th of August 1981 after 60 days on hunger strike. Michael Gowan, County Mayo, aged 24 years, died 3rd of June 1974 after 67 days on hunger strike. Stagg, County Mayo, aged 28 years, died 12th of February 1976 after 62 days on hunger strike.
No one will ever forget the terrible sacrifice needed to create these conditions in the prisons. The deaths of 10 Irishmen who would rather give their young lives than capitulate to Britain's attempts to criminalise them. Their names will be remembered when freedom dawns in our country. Of the hunger strikers that died, and you would have noticed if you listened to their ages when Declan was saying it, they were all young men, and all would have been released bar one from prison by 1987. Many of those who also participated in the hunger strike and survived are once again active within Sinn Féin. Father Dennis Fall, the prison chaplain at the time of the hunger strike, came to visit Bobby Sands in his cell not long after it had begun. The priest sought to question Bobby on the morals of his hunger strike. Bobby's only response was to quote the Bible. Greater love than this had no man than to lay down his life for his friend. Father Fall, which the prisoners had christened Dennis the Menace, said nothing, turned around and left.
Main Speaker Gino McCormick, a man that gave 5 years on the blanket.
Kiblet Boyle Morana, what work is Steve? I had a Gamakan showing up, you see a cloak to the Judoni, or Jerry Shack in the Sierra Bank. Fair play, it's Mahan Road to Public Tanny, folks to Cheershaw, Sasta, and Kivnu, or the Stalker of his truck of Blaine, and he the Bass and Jake, and Ruggles and Birchickley, Gablin Lumpy. Fair play, deep, Primily Maga Bastion. Boylum Kumai, I was telling me sure he's in Satang, Tank in the man really, I don't second, but Boylum Kumai, my work is reports that I didn't open Shaw. I has cool on you, or in Valak or Fad. You should go here and talk to us myself. I was done color party. I was going to do the glass to shoes for fair fluid. Hey, grocery floor. That was the floor. And I'm at the Blackna. I was come out quick and rudder and shift fresh. I'll just say again what I've just said. I'd like to thank all of you for being here tonight, 30 years on, to remember the hunger strike. And it's a great lift to the heart to see so many people coming out and remembering the hunger strikers 30 years after their death. Most of the people that are here tonight, not all, but most of them weren't even born when the hunger strike took place. So thanks for that. And also to thank the young people here in the band, and also the people who have led the band, the older people who have put the band together, the colour party, and the people dressed as the blanket men, because they had the coldest job tonight, and they deserve a bully buzz for what they've done tonight. 30 years ago, in the H blocks of Long Case and in Armagh Women's Prison, there was a hunger strike taking place. That's why we're here now. The seeds of the hunger strike were sown, as Jimmy has said here, a few years previous to that, 5 years previous to that, in 1976, when a Labour government in Britain, not a Tory government, but a Labour government in Britain, took away political status. They took it away because the IRA had been building within the jails in the cages of Long Case, had managed to burn the prison down in 1974 and protest against the draconian conditions that were there at the time. And in revenge for that, the British government, through its Gardner Commission, designed the H blocks, built H blocks to try and individualise and separate every prisoner so that there would no longer be a united force of prisoners in the old prisoner of war camp style. So from early 1976, from March the 1st, 1976, when the first prisoners were coming through, they were met with a different type of prison regime. It wasn't different in every single way, because there might be a myth has built up that the political prisoners prior to 1976 had some sort of a cushy existence in jail. They didn't. Otherwise they wouldn't have burned the prison down in 1974. Conditions were very bad at that stage as well. It wasn't as if suddenly in 1976 conditions became bad. But what happened from 1976 onward was that not only was brutality taking place within the jail, but that the British government and their lackeys in Ireland were allowing political prisoners to be abused in an organised and on a daily way. And that all privileges and all rights that are normally associated with people being in prison were removed. And very, very quickly, within a couple of months of political status being taken away, the first of the prisoners, Kieran Nugent, the late Kieran Nugent, as has already been mentioned, was sentenced and was told that he would have to wear a prison uniform. And Kieran's response to that has gone down in Republican folklore. They'll have to nail it to me back. And they didn't nail it to his back. And had they tried, they would have met the same response that he gave them. Instead of wearing the prison uniform, he wrapped himself in a blanket, and thus the blanket protest was born. Now, had it happened 15 or 20 years later, and I've said this before, it may have been called the duvet protest, because there wouldn't have been blankets. But as it happened in 1976, it was blankets. And so, he was put into a cell in Crumlin Road Jail, and a few days later he was moved into the new H blocks. Now, these H blocks were something to behold. They were single cell units, they were shaped in a figure H, and everything was pristine and spotlessly clean. It was a new prison, and the British media came in force and took photographs of it, and couldn't believe this holiday camp that had been built for all these terrorists, as they were calling us at the time. And outside of the jail, a language was developing in the media that allowed them to put this prison regime in place, because the whole terminology started changing, and they started talking about men of violence and women of violence. They started talking about Chicago-style killings, doorstep killings. And in 1976 there was a huge media campaign run with billboard posters all around the north, with a little child sitting in a bombed-out building saying 7 years is too much. Now, we responded by saying that 700 was a lot more. But that was the type of mentality that they had, that this has to come to an end and that they were going to bring it to an end. And then they had their lackeys in all parts of the country. And remember that in 1976, we were commemorating the 60th anniversary of the 1916 Rising. We're very close now to the 100th anniversary coming up, 95 years this year. And at that time the BBC did a remarkable thing, and they carried out a documentary with surviving people, or the sons and daughters of surviving people of the 1916 Rising. And among the people that they interviewed was Sean McEntee, the father-in-law of Conor Cruise O'Brien. Now, it may come as no surprise to people here to discover that Sean McEntee's take on this was very much akin to Conor Cruise O'Brien's. And what he said it would be a blasphemy to mention the name of Pearse and Provisional together. I give you Bobby Sands and I give you Patrick Pearse, and tell me the difference. People who believed, people who had a vision, people who laid down their lives for something, not for themselves, not for no personal gain, but for the greater cause of the common good. And yet these people were telling us that it would be blasphemy to mention these two names in the same breath. Well, anyway, we took up the gauntlet. And in 1976, unfortunately, I was arrested. And fortunately, I was arrested at a time when I was able to continue struggle with inside the prison walls. And that's what we did. We spent the next few years taking on the British within the prison. Everything that they threw at us, we threw it back. Every time they came up with some new way of trying to make our life more difficult, we broke them. And I'll give you a few examples, because it was a funny sort of a time to live in as well. We smashed the windows in the cells because we couldn't breathe, because they were throwing in a high toxicity detergent into the cells, and people were choking. So we smashed the windows. They came back in a few days later, and they boasted that they had found this bulletproof glass that they were going to put in. Well, if anybody ever wants rid of a bit of bulletproof glass, set it on fire, because we burned them down that night. That was the end of that. They came in then, they blocked up the spy hatch in the doors, so we knocked a hole through the side of the wall. Everything that they did to make us into individuals, we broke it down. We always acted as a unit.